What if, the sudden spike in Brent crude oil or some diplomatic meltdown at a NATO summit? What if those weren't actually political events, but gravitational ones?
No, that is a wild premise to start on.
Right. I mean, you check the weather forecast to see if you need an umbrella, right?
Yeah.
Because you understand the physical certainty of atmospheric pressure.
Yeah.
But today we are looking at a forecast for human chaos.
Yeah, and not just chaos, but a system that attempts to map, like, the collective destiny of world leaders, financial markets, and even the Earth's crust.
Exactly. Using this highly specific, almost rigid mathematical framework.
It's a total radical departure from traditional forecasting. We are shifting from, tracking supply chains and polling data to tracking the exact geometry of the solar system. And this is the crazy part, assigning cold, hard integers to those planetary angles.
Yeah, assigning numbers to the sky. So welcome to today's deep dive. Just to set the stage for you listening, today is Saturday, July 4th, 2026.
Happy 4th.
Yeah, happy 4th. And the forecast we have on the table today is this fascinating, intricately detailed post for the upcoming week. So July 6th through July 12th, 2026.
Right.
And it comes from a Turkish blog called AstrologCat. It's authored by Gay Harashu. Our mission today is to essentially, tear this engine apart and see how it actually works.
Which is quite the engine.
It really is.
Yeah.
We are going to explore how this author uses a unique coefficient system to quantify astrological weather, predicting everything from a volatile clash between Donald Trump and NATO to the exact day Bitcoin is supposed to surge.
The underlying architecture here is just, it's what warrants such a close look, honestly. The author takes these ancient sort of qualitative archetypes of mundane astrology and forces them through this very modern quantitative filter.
Like running mysticism through a spreadsheet.
Yes, exactly. They're basically applying algorithms to mysticism.
Before we go any further, though, we need to pause for a mandatory explicit disclaimer.
Good call.
Yeah, because you are going to hear us mention real-world, highly charged political entities today. The source text makes very specific predictions regarding Donald Trump, Turkish President Erdogan, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, the nations of Israel and Iran, and the NATO alliance.
It covers a lot of ground.
It does. And to be absolutely clear to you listening, neither of us is endorsing these viewpoints. We are not taking sides, and we are certainly not making political statements here.
No, not at all.
We are strictly here as observers, right, just to unpack the logic, the framework, and the claims contained within this original text.
Right. We're just analyzing the blueprint of the argument. Because the fascination really lies in how this system treats, say, a multinational military alliance or a decentralized cryptocurrency as if it were a living, breathing entity.
With a psychological profile.
Yeah, a profile and a vulnerable nervous system, basically.
So, okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with the machinery driving all these predictions, which is the coefficient system.
The
math. Because in traditional astrology, you might read that a planet is, making a challenging aspect, right?
Sure. Very qualitative language.
Exactly. But this text strips away all those adjectives and replaces them with a daily numerical score. Reading through this, the immediate analogy that came to my mind was a role-playing video game.
Oh, yeah. You're looking at it like stat buffs and debuffs.
Exactly like that. In an RPG, your character might equip a cursed item and suddenly take a -2 to strength, or, drink a potion for a +5 to charisma.
I love that analogy.
AstrologCat's system assigns these rising and falling coefficients to natal planets on a daily basis. So it calculates the exact mathematical angles of the current transiting planets and aggregates them into a single integer.
And looking at the text, the author specifically flags Wednesday, July 8th as the primary danger zone of the week.
Right. Why is that?
Well, because the sun, which is currently transiting Cancer, drops to a -2 coefficient.
Okay, a -2.
Yeah, and in this framework, the sun represents your vital force, your core identity, and leadership. So when the algorithm spits out a -2 for that specific placement, it essentially means the geometry of the solar system is actively suppressing or distorting that vital energy.
And the text outlines that this -2 score is highly detrimental for any entity, human or otherwise, right? Born with their natal sun in Cancer, Aries, Libra, or Capricorn.
But it also creates a mechanical advantage for entities with their natal Mars in Taurus, Virgo, Scorpio, or Pisces.
So it's like a zero-sum transfer of energy?
Precisely. Which actually brings up a really critical structural rule the author establishes down in a footnote.
Oh, I saw that.
The math isn't just applied uniformly. The source strictly separates the coefficients of natal planets from the coefficients of astrological houses.
Yeah, I was actually getting super tripped up on this until I saw that specific footnote. Because I'm thinking, okay, if my planetary stats drop, does that mean I, like, make a bad decision? Or does a piano fall on my head?
Right, internal versus external.
Exactly. The author draws a hard line here. Natal planets symbolize our internal behaviors and our reactions. But the astrological houses, they symbolize the external environment, the conditions happening to us.
So to map it back to your gaming analogy, the natal planets are your character's base stats, and the astrological houses basically dictate the difficulty level of the specific dungeon you're walking into.
That makes so much sense.
And for the week of July 6th, the author's math calculates that the Leo house has the lowest overall coefficient, meaning it's the most hostile external environment.
Wow.
Conversely, the Pisces house has the highest coefficient, making it the most supportive.
Okay, so if we take that mechanics level understanding right, a volatile -2 sun on July 8th, and a hostile Leo environment, and we project that onto the world stage, the causality the author draws is just wild.
It really escalates.
The text zeroes in on the historic NATO Summit scheduled for that exact day, July 8th.
Because it applies those personal stat debuffs directly to geopolitical heavyweights. Like, the text tracks Donald Trump as having a natal Mars in Leo, while Turkish President Erdogan is identified as a Pisces.
Wait, so Trump is walking into this summit with his Mars, which is, his drive, his aggression, sitting right in the middle of Leo.
Right.
And the math has already designated Leo as the lowest coefficient, most hostile house of the entire week.
The environment of ego and leadership is essentially starved of positive energy here. And because Trump's Mars coefficient is dropping inside this hostile environment on July 8th, the system predicts a complete psychological pressure cooker.
A total meltdown.
Yeah. The text explicitly forecasts that he will be unusually tense, impulsive, and prone to anger during this meeting.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. The author predicts that anger won't just be random. It's going to be highly targeted based on the astrological vulnerabilities of other entities.
Right, following the math.
The text claims Trump will lash out specifically at Iran and at NATO itself because both are categorized as Aries entities. And Aries is mathematically weakened by that -2 sun in Cancer.
The logic totally holds together within its own framework. Like, the frustrated Mars energy seeks the path of least resistance, which in this model is an entity currently suffering a severe debuff.
That is just, wow.
It's fascinating to see mundane astrology anthropomorphize a treaty, I mean, NATO is in Aries because the original North Atlantic Treaty was signed on April 4th, 1949.
So they use the signing date.
Yeah, the author treats the literal moment the ink dried on that paper as the alliance's first breath, embedding it with a subconscious that can be agitated by the planetary alignments of the humans interacting with it.
I struggle with the scale of that, I have to be honest. It's one thing to argue a human being's nervous system is influenced by lunar cycles. That's, a known concept.
Sure.
But it is a massive conceptual leap to say a bureaucratic document from 1949 has a pressure point that can be mathematically triggered by a politician 70 years later.
Yeah. Well, the premise of mundane astrology is that organizations, nations, and treaties take on the resonance of their inception moment. The cosmic weather at the time of creation acts as a permanent structural blueprint. So when the current cosmic weather interacts with that blueprint, you get a measurable geopolitical event.
And the conflict zone isn't just isolated to the NATO summit either. The text pulls in Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, the nation of China, and the nation of Israel as a whole.
Because according to the author's tracking, all three of these entities share that exact same natal Mars in Leo placement with Donald Trump.
So they are all operating under the same mathematical handicap on July 8th. The Leo house is bottoming out, basically frustrating their collective Mars energy.
Exactly. The text predicts a cascading effect where these Leo-Mars entities aggressively target Cancer, Aries, Libra, and Capricorn entities.
And the specific prediction here is what makes this document so striking for you listening. The author suggests NATO will experience deep internal divisions and arguments on the 8th, and they even float the possibility that Israel might launch a direct attack on Iran that same day.
It essentially maps global conflict as a symptom of a temporary, calculable dip in planetary integers.
Just a dip in the stats.
Yeah. But the text doesn't hold this tension indefinitely. It predicts a massive structural pivot just 3 days later.
July 11th. The geopolitical board completely flips. And it is entirely driven by a different planetary metric.
Uranus.
Yeah. The text states that on Saturday, July 11th, Uranus hits a +5 coefficient. And in this author's algorithm, a +5 is a massive, incredibly rare surge.
Oh, absolutely. When Uranus hits a spike of that magnitude, we are looking at intense, sudden, and paradigm-shifting disruption.
The total shakeup.
A +5 implies that multiple fast-moving planets are hitting exact harmonious degrees with Uranus simultaneously. It creates this compounding mathematical score.
So the real-world application of this +5 is a total reversal of the power dynamics from July 8th. The author notes that Israel, which they track as having a sun in Taurus, alongside that Mars in Leo, they will receive severe negative impacts from this Uranian surge.
Because the disruption works against their foundational blueprint.
Exactly. While Iran, carrying a natal Mars in Pisces, catches the positive wave of that Uranian energy.
The specific forecast is that Iran could leverage this +5 coefficient to strike back at Israel, entirely reversing the vulnerability they experienced earlier in the week.
If human aggression and national defense strategies are being batted around by these planetary coefficients, then, it stands to reason that the markets controlled by these nations would violently react as well.
Definitely.
Which is exactly where the author takes this next. They map this Uranus shift directly onto the global financial markets.
Because economics is just collective human psychology in motion, right? If the system dictates that human behavior shifts on the 11th, the flow of capital basically has to follow.
But the idea of giving a birth chart to a financial instrument is mind-bending. The author systematically assigns birthdays to assets and calculates their daily value coefficients.
And the predictions here are hyper-specific.
Very. First, they look at gold and silver. The math dictates both will drop heavily during that chaotic low-coefficient window of July 8th, but they are forecasted to violently rebound on July 11th, riding that +5 Uranian wave.
Which tracks, right. A sudden, shocking rebound is exactly what you would expect from a Uranian transit. But the energy market prediction is even more extreme.
Brent oil. Oh my gosh. The author provides a daily coefficient chart for Brent oil's value. All week, it hovers in the teens and 20s.
Normal fluctuations.
Right, but on Saturday, July 11th, the aggregate score hits a staggering 40.
A coefficient of 40 is an extreme statistical outlier in this model. For an asset to hit that number, nearly every transit in the sky would have to be forming a mathematically perfect supportive angle to Brent oil's inception chart.
Which implies what, practically?
An integer that high implies a major, unforeseen global event disrupting oil supply or skyrocketing demand on that specific Saturday.
The most fascinating application of this math, though, has to be the crypto market. The author treats decentralized digital code with the exact same astrological gravity as a physical barrel of oil.
By casting a chart for the moment a network goes live.
Yes. They use the Genesis block date for Bitcoin, which is January 3, 2009. That gives Bitcoin a core identity, so a sun and Mars in Capricorn.
Okay.
And for Ethereum, they use its launch date of July 30, 2015. So if Bitcoin's Genesis block is its first breath, its internal code is permanently locked into the planetary geometry of that specific second in 2009.
And despite their completely different birth dates and different underlying code bases, the algorithm predicts both Bitcoin and Ethereum will experience a sharp rise on July 11th.
Because of Uranus again.
Yeah, the Uranian disruption inherently benefits decentralized, non-traditional systems.
But it applies to fiat and traditional stocks, too. The major Turkish stock index, the BIST 100, was launched on April 5, 2013, making it heavily Aries dominant, so Sun, Mars, and Venus all in Aries. The text forecasts it to rise on the 11th as well.
The author actually goes deeper in the footnotes regarding fiat currency, detailing how they determine the natal Venuses for sovereign money.
Oh, right. Yeah.
They track the US dollar as a Cancer and the Turkish lira as a Scorpio.
Okay, wait. How do you even determine the birthday of the US dollar? Are they using, like, the Coinage Act of 1792 or the day we went off the gold standard?
It typically relies on the foundational legislative acts that establish the currency as sovereign tender.
That is wild.
But the philosophical implication here is staggering, isn't it? It suggests a worldview where abstract digital code mined on a server and paper money printed by a central bank are both inextricably tied to the solar system's mechanics.
Yep.
It assumes that human constructs of value are subject to the same cosmic laws of gravity as the ocean's tides.
Which essentially implies the market isn't just a reactionary network of human fear and greed. It suggests fear and greed are just the symptoms, and the planetary gravity is the actual disease.
Exactly.
But this author doesn't just float in the abstract realms of diplomatic treaties and blockchain architecture. They bring the coefficient math right back down to the physical Earth.
The system extends into seismology and meteorology.
Yes, the text explicitly flags Tuesday, July 7th as an earthquake point, predicting severe seismic activity along weak fault lines.
And the calculation method for this is brilliant within the context of the framework. The author determines earthquake risk by isolating and summing the coefficients of all planets transiting through the sign of Scorpio.
Because Scorpio represents the underground.
Scorpio rules the hidden depths, the subterranean, and the literal tectonic plates. So by adding up the numerical weight of the planets currently occupying that space, the author calculates a literal pressure score beneath the Earth's crust.
Just building up pressure.
Right, and when that aggregate integer hits a critical mass on July 7th, the crust is mathematically predicted to crack.
It's treating the physical planet Earth like an entity with its own vulnerable transits. And it continues the next day. The dangerous -2 sun on July 8th isn't just blamed for Trump's temper at NATO.
Right, it does more than that.
It is flagged as the direct cause of negative weather conditions and a predicted spike in physical accidents. The suppressed solar energy creates literal atmospheric gloom and an increase in human error.
Which brings the entire macrocosmic system down to the microcosmic level of the individual reader.
So what does this all mean for you, right? The listener, just going about your week. The author includes a personal warning section using the exact same coefficient algorithm to provide highly specific guidance for all 12 rising signs.
They calculate exactly where that -2 sun in Cancer will strike your personal chart on July 8th.
Because the houses represent the external environment, right?
Right. The author can tell you precisely which area of your life is going to experience that hostile drop in stats.
So if you are an Aries rising, the math targets your fourth house. You need to brace for disruptions in your home or family life.
Okay.
If you are a Pisces rising, the warning zeroes in on your 5th house, so creativity and romance. And a Virgo rising needs to watch their 11th house of friendships and social networks.
It's taking this massive, churning, cosmic weather system. I mean, the exact same mathematical pressure allegedly causing NATO to fracture and Brent crude oil to spike to 40 and pinpointing the specific room in your metaphorical house where the roof is going to cave in.
To pull back and look at the sheer scope of this single blog post.
Yeah.
I mean, we have an author using a proprietary integer-based algorithm to predict a tense, volatile geopolitical standoff on July 8th.
Yeah.
They mathematically model a global pivot on July 11th that empowers Iran against Israel. They forecast exact rebound windows for decentralized digital currencies and traditional stock indices while simultaneously, calculating subterranean pressure to predict earthquakes and telling you why you might get into an argument with your roommate.
It is a breathtaking amount of data synthesis. Ultimately, what we are analyzing here is a fascinating, complex artifact of human sense-making.
Sense-making, I like that.
Because we live in an era defined by 247 news cycles, volatile algorithmic trading, and geopolitical crises that feel violently random, the modern world can feel entirely chaotic.
It really can.
What this author has done is take the oldest science humanity possesses, the tracking of planetary bodies, and welded it to modern data analytics. It's a deeply human attempt to prove that the universe isn't random, that if you just crunch the numbers hard enough, you can find the grand, calculable design hidden behind the headlines.
We check the weather forecast on our phones because we crave preparation. We want to know if we need an umbrella so we don't get caught in the storm. This blog is offering a radically different kind of umbrella for a much, much larger storm.
Well said.
I want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive today. As you navigate the news and the markets this week, I want to leave you with a final question to ponder. If a mathematical system treats a line of decentralized code like Bitcoin, a sprawling military alliance like NATO, and a human world leader as having the exact same vulnerabilities, does that say more about the invisible gravitational connections that bind our universe together? Or does it say more about the human brain's desperate, beautiful need to find a pattern in the noise?
That is a profound question to take into the week.
Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.